Okay, so we're going to look at what's up from the grade 2 syllabus. We're going to do a line by line breakdown. I'm going to talk you through it and then we're going to try and play each line. It's important that you practice each line 4 to 8 times, no mistakes, before moving on to the next one. Okay, here's line 1. It goes bass, snare, hi-hat, snare, bass, bass, snare, hi-hat, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare. Okay, notice how the hi-hat comes in the third bar, but not at the beginning of the bar. It comes in after one bass and snare on its own. Okay, line 2 goes bass and snare and snare bass, bass and snare and snare bass, bass and snare and bass and snare and snare and snare and snare, tom tom tom. The tom tom tom, you're going to go right left left. So that last bar. Okay, have a practice of that bit before you do the whole line. Here's the whole second line. Third line, the B section of what's up, goes, it's a disco beat, so your feet are going to be doing this. And then over the top, you're going to do bass and snare and bass and snare and like this. Okay, you might want to practice the groove on its own, but line 3 is just the groove with a crash on beat 1. Here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's line 3. Line 4 has 2 bars of the same groove and then something a bit different, which goes bass and snare and bass and snare crash, like this. That fill, tea, coffee, coffee. It's the whole 4th line, 3, 4. Okay, line 5, which is the C section, is a bit more tricky because we've got this crotchet hi-hat pattern. It's going to go like this: bass, snare, bass, open, snare, bass, snare, bass, open, snare. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Notice the bass drum on its own, like that. And then, okay, and then after you've done that groove for 2 bars, you've got to do this: bass and snare, bass, bass and snare, and bass and snare, bass, bass and. Okay, so a whole of the 5th line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the next line of the C section, so the second line of the C section, goes same 2 bars again. And then it goes bass and snare, bass, bass and snare, and bass and lemonade, coffee, coffee. Check out this fill. Probably want to practice that fill 8 times on its own, get confident with that, then put it in the whole line. Here's the whole line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving on to the D section. This groove is similar to the disco groove because the bass drum keeps going. You do 4 bass drums on the floor, 4 to the floor. first note of the D section has a crash on beat 1. So here's that second from last line of What's Up. 2, 3, 4. And then you're onto the E section, which goes the same groove, but there's a little twist at the end, a pushed crash. So it goes bass and snare and bass and snare crash, bass snare and bass bass snare. Look. And then you've got a flashy fill at the end, which goes slush, puppy, coffee, lemonade, floor tom, bass. Definitely want to practice that fill on its own just to get used to it, okay? But here's the whole last line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, try and practice the whole piece now. One line at a time, then 2 lines at a time before you put it together and try and do a whole run-through performance. Good luck.